All right. I think it's time to begin. Hello everyone and welcome to BHT Studios. Let me know if everything looks fine, the audio. I struggled a little bit to do this live. Camera girl kicked me out of the house around 1 o'clock and now it's 2:30 and I still haven't figured out if I did this right. But I'm going to be fair to both Fujifilm, the GFX 100S, and the Leica Q2 monochrome. So let's do a click with this one. Click. That's a lot quieter because this has a leaf shutter in here. So here I have the two main cameras that I'm currently reviewing, the GFX 100S and the Leica Q2 monochrome. And thank you for joining me. I'm using OBS, but as well I'm trying to figure out here. Let me see here. There, looks and sounds great. Hello Pete. Thanks for joining. And thanks for letting me know that everything looks and sounds good. I'm gonna just wait a little bit as people are joining, but and I might end up repeating a lot of the stuff that I've already said up to now, but I am actually using the Leica SL2 with the 16 to 55 millimeter at, what am I at here? I'm at about 30 millimeters to shoot this video. And so let me know if you kind of see the difference between shooting a video with the Leica SL2 versus the X-T4, which has been my main video camera for doing live stream and for most of my YouTube videos. I go between the X-T4 and the X Pro 3 for my YouTube video, but here we go. So this is I rarely get to show this because I'm always using it, but I actually have to adjust the Leica SL2 to -2 contrast, which is the maximum you can do, -2 sharpening, which is the maximum you can unsharpen, and I think I went +1 saturation because it looked a little dull, and this is their standard video view, and even with that it still seems, I have a monitor here, it still seems, other than maybe it's a little bit too punchy, but it's pretty darn sharp. And here we go. Hey guys, hey Cafe YVR, video sound thumbs up. Ali, how's it going? Ali, 1080p, which is good, which is what I want, right? And video looks really contrasty. Yeah, so that's -2 contrast. And this is what is normal for Leica. It's very sharp and contrasty. So if Cafe YVR, you didn't hear what I just said, -2 sharpening, which is the maximum you can do in the SL2, -2 contrast on the SL2, and +1 saturation. Because with all that minusing, it seemed a little dull, but maybe it's a little too saturated now. But that's just +1. And autofocus is at maximum sensitivity and maximum speed, and it's still pretty slow, as you can see. It's on face detect, so for video it's still trying to see that. Maybe I'm too close. Let's just see how fast it can focus. It's not the fastest focusing. See how I think it still hasn't really caught on. Is it finally caught on to the X? Maybe I need to half press here or something, but what is that? There you go. So he's finally got the Fujifilm, and now back on to me. We'll see how long it takes to come on. But yeah, the SL2, the reason why I'm using is because I just had a meeting with Leica technical support lead for Leica North America on Friday or Thursday, and he always uses the SL2, and so he encouraged me to try it on my live streaming, so I thought I would give it a try. Let's look at your questions here. Hey Take, recently got my hands on the Pentax the Q7, and through my search, so your videos on these cameras, I wish I'd seen your video 5 or 6 years ago. Yeah, the Q series, the tiny mini, I think it was like a 1/1.7 inch sensor. It sold really well in Asia. They had like 20 different colorway combinations. They're like sneakers almost. green and pink, pink and green, brown with pink, brown with yellow, yellow with pink. It was just crazy, the combinations. And you could do some fun things with it, but in today's world, the 1 over 1.7 inch sensor is pretty small, but you could see what they've done with smartphones with the right software. You can still take pretty darn good pictures, but I don't think Pentax or any of the camera manufacturers are that great when it comes to software. They really need help from third-party manufacturers, and the mobile photography industry is really good with their software. So anyways, I hope you're having fun with it. Is it the lens or the processing? Ali, I think because this is digital, it's probably a little bit of both. So let's just see. Hey, Broj Puro from the Netherlands. It's got to be pretty late in the Netherlands, isn't it? I was trying to get on by 1:30, so I'm almost an hour late coming on live. So I need about 45 minutes to set up. And I have lunch with Camera Girl. She starts piano teaching around 1 o'clock. So I leave the house before 1 and I have to like hide out somewhere or do something. And so she encouraged me, Take, do your live. You know, you always encourage people to come on live, but you never announce it. But part of the reason is because it takes me time. They come here and set everything up. So I have a whole bunch of cameras. I have the GFX 50S with me. I have the GFX 100S with me, and I've shot a video already. My first first look or first impressions. I have the M monochrome with me, and the it's not the M monochrome, the Q2 monochrome, and the standard Q2. And notice I have to use different strap colors so I know what I'm grabbing. So the one with the color is obviously the regular Q2, and both of these straps are from Camera Film Photo and Kura. It's kind of the limited run Japanese silk straps. They're expensive. They're kind of a premium strap, hence on these premium cameras, right? It works for these type of cameras. But yeah, I really like using them on reasonably lighter cameras, rangefinders, all-in-one cameras like this, point and shoots. It works out well. And I have my Ricoh GR3. I say my, this is still a loaner from Ricoh North America, Ricoh Pentax North America. And I have film cameras kind of all spread out throughout my studio, but I don't have one kind of next to me. I thought maybe I'd be getting a lot of questions about Leica, the Q2. I'm seeming to get a lot of questions on it in my community section, as well as on my Instagram and Twitter, because people are really curious about the Q2. So I do have it set up on on my OBS here. What do I have? Photoscape. Let me just give me a second here. Let me get out of this. Go to view. And Cafe YVR, I'm gonna put you a little bit on the spot because I have pictures of you. Unless you're like really against me sharing it. But I shouldn't say really, but I was gonna show you guys sort of when you look at a raw file versus and just kind of show this. And while I'm doing this, I should maybe, oh, it's taking some time. Here we go. All right, let's just show you Photoscape and webcam. Here we go. So this is, I'm gonna just get rid of myself here from it completely. So you can see in this picture here, you can't see. Can you see the mouse? I don't think you can see the mouse. But look at the corners of this photo. You can see how it vignettes in the corners. And then let's go to, so this is the DNG. You can see right here on the bottom left corner, it gives you the file number, and then it says DNG. Now this is the JPEG version of this. So I shot DNG and JPEG. So this is the DNG raw file with a thumbnail screen grab, because embedded in a DNG is just a low resolution JPEG of the actual image that I shot. And this is the JPEG. See how the edges, so even with the Leica Q2, there is optical correction in software. See that? It squares up the image. You can see how it's a little bit more, you can see the barrel distortion. And then here and you can really notice in that back wall, See where that's Chef Gordon from Maxim's, where his finger is, and you can see that the wall there, right? It's a little bit of an angle, but then look at the straight part of the wall, and now see how the JPEG, it just corrects it nice and straight. So even with the Leica, it definitely is corrected. You can see that correction in that JPEG. Hopefully you guys saw that, me shifting there. Did you guys see the shifting? Let me just change it back so you can at least see me in the webcam version here. Here we go. And let me get back to here so I can see your comments here. Let me see here. Toronto. Oh, you talk about the Pentax Q7. You got the yellow one with the standard zoom. Yeah, those are fun little cameras. Mag007 asking about the manual-focus point and shoot from Fujifilm. Be nice addition to their lineup. And a medium format. Yeah, I actually wrote an article. I actually been mentioning it quite a few times. I definitely think that Fujifilm should make a X100 version of medium format. So a fixed lens, either it'll be a GF45 or a probably a GF45, which works out to be about a 35 mil equivalent, right? And even if it was 50 megapixel, it doesn't have to be the 100 megapixel version, right? Even the 50 megapixel version, definitely Fujifilm needs to do that. Yeah, and Cafe Wavier is looking at the 8384 by 5624. So that works out to be about a 47 megapixel image. So you could definitely see, again, as I mentioned, the correction when you shoot raw files. You can see how much correction there is in the image itself when you shoot raw. That there's a lot of software coming into play, and so that goes back to the initial question of why is this Leica SL2 video? Why is it so contrasty? Why does it seem sharp? I don't think this is artificial sharpening, because there are other things you can see for over sharpening, and I don't think it's over sharpening, because you'd probably start seeing a little bit of some moire in here because of the stitching in here, so you don't see that. But definitely the contrast and the saturation is going to be a mixture of optics as well as the sensor and the software. There's a lot of elements involved, right? Back in the film day, it was either the film or the lens. If you shot slide, if you shot color negative and you got to print, then also there's that printing part of it, right? Like the paper, as well as they can add color saturation and color balance and contrast in the color negative to print process. But if you're shooting a slide film and you're using film, it's basically the film or the optics, right? But with digital, there's so many different factors involved. So who knows what's making this so contrasty? Because again, this is -2 contrast, -2 sharpening, and it still seems overly sharp. I apologize for coming this close, but it just seems overly sharp and contrasty, even with the minusing. So yeah, I'm gonna talk to the Leica. I'm gonna have him on live, maybe not live, but I'm gonna do an Instagram live. He agreed to do an Instagram live. The head technical support for Leica North America. He said he'd love to do a YouTube video with me, but I don't think I'm gonna do it live like this, because I think we're gonna easily go off topic, because we want to kind of talk about the Leica Q and the Q2 for this one, and maybe once a month I could do a conversation with Leica. And so that'll probably be a Zoom video that I'm gonna then edit and then kind of present it so he's gonna record his side, I'm gonna record my side, and then he's gonna send me his video stream, and then I'll kind of edit it into a usable video, but also do an Instagram live with them. And that'll be more of a live thing where people will ask questions, and if it's way off topic, I will not answer it. And if it's on topic, or even if it's a little bit off topic, we can kind of go off topic for a little bit. So keep an eye out on my Instagram as well as on my YouTube for having a conversation with Leica North America. XE4 or used X100V? Well, it depends on what you're trying to do, David. If you're happy with the 23 mil lens on the X100V and you don't plan to be switching out lenses, they both use the same battery, they're both using the same sensor, they're both using the same processor. So the biggest difference is going to be the articulating screen. XE4 is a little bit more flexible. You can flip it forward, you can flip it, you can pull it out. The X100V is technically a more premium camera. It's made in Japan. It is a very fancy hybrid optical electronic viewfinder, and XE4 is more versatile because of the lens swapping out, and it depends on if that's going to be your one and only primary camera or you have other cameras and this is your secondary camera. As a secondary camera, I think the X100V is a fantastic camera to have, and I'm still kind of like, I have an X100F that I love. It's focusing on the wall there, right? Here, let's just see how fast it can refocus. That was pretty good, right? So here's my X100F, and here's the adapter to make this into 28 millimeter, which kind of, still makes it kind of big like this. I have a hood on here, but I think an X100 series is a great camera to have, but it has limits. To me, it's almost like buying a convertible sports car, two-seater, right? It's great, but if you have 2 kids and a dog and a surfboard, the two-seater convertible probably isn't the best one to have. But if it's your secondary casual vehicle, or if you're a single person, don't have a surfboard, don't plan to carry a lot, you want minimalism in your system, then maybe still the X100V will work out well for you. Which sneakers go best with the SL2? It'll have to be a German sneaker, and I think it would have to be a pretty gussied up sneaker. And actually, I did post it. Well, you know what? I kind of don't want to go in my closet because the closet's pretty messy. But I think you gotta. It'll have to be an Ultra Boost, I think. An Adidas Ultra Boost DNA for its tech. With the Boost technology, it's a runner, but people use them for casual, but it's very techy and futuristic, and that goes really well with the SL2. But that's a really cool question. Thank you for asking that. I should be matching up every camera with a sneaker, shouldn't I? MacD, what's up? I got an M10 2 weeks ago. Congratulations. Alongside my X100, love it, but gotta be honest, I don't see a big improvement in IQ with my M10 versus the X100V. The size, the flash, ND field, etc. are great as well. Yeah, the M10 is definitely a very different monster. I would say, if you want to compare an X100V with anything, it would probably be with the Leica Q2. They're both leaf shutter technology. They both are fixed lens, so you can't swap the lenses out. They both have autofocus. They both are kind of, offset viewfinder. They're both kind of point and shooty, I guess. And this has a really cool kind of a macro mode. The M10 is a much slower, older legacy process of taking pictures. Plus, you got to buy expensive M glass or third-party Voigtlander. It's the joy of shooting a little bit slower. You're not going to be doing quick snapshots with it unless you're really well versed in the rangefinder style photography. As well, they're just very different type cameras. But I can definitely see why an X100V feels more fun to shoot with. But in terms of IQ, depending on which, they're both 24 megapixels, right? And so in terms of resolution, technically they have the same resolution, but not necessarily the same image quality. Image quality being everything from, which includes the lens, right? Just how well corrected the lens is, how good the micro contrast is, how well does it control various types of chromatic aberration, color, and those things also is part of software and stuff like that. And so I can definitely see people really enjoying the X100V. If you are shooting at ISO 3200 to 6400 at night, or in low light, I think that's where you'll see a huge IQ difference between the M10 and the X100V. But if you're shooting out in the daylight, bright, sunny, and both are down at like ISO 100 or 200, and you're stopping down, then probably you won't see a huge difference. But I'm glad you have both. Those are both fun cameras to have. And John, how do you think the Fuji will be able to separate the XH2 from the XT5 and not repeat what happened with the XH1 and the XT3? Yeah, so I think the XH2 will still be their flagship. Remember, since the XT3, Fujifilm's made the XT3 and the XT4. It's being now offshore to China. I have a feeling that the XH2 will still be made in Japan, still will be technically their flagship, although the release of the XH1 was very odd in comparison to the XT3, meaning the XT3 got the better processor, even though it was just launched a few months after. If the XH1 had the X processor 4, then I think that would have been a much smarter move on Fujifilm's part. So hopefully the XH2 and the XT5 will have very similar, like they'll have the same sensor in the processor. The XH2 might have a different, might actually have a different sensor. The XH2 might be more video / hybrid centric, so it might have like a 45 megapixel, that top of the line Sony sensor they have, I think it's 45 or 40 megapixel square pixel sensor that can do up to 6K video. So I think Fujifilm will probably put that in the X. Well, I should just grab my XH2 as well. And as I'm talking, I realize I still have gourd in my, here, let me just switch back to, here we go. Back to just me. Here's the XH2 here. I think it will retain this standard viewfinder like this. Just like how the new Fujifilm GFX 100S didn't put a fully front articulating screen, right? They have the kind of the Pro, the 3-way articulating screen that Fujifilm's been using since the XT2, I think, right? XT2? Or maybe they started with the XH1. Could have been XT2. Someone can correct me in the comments there. But anyways, notice they didn't do a flip out screen on the GFX 100S. So I think the XH2 will be very similar to the GFX 100S. And in fact, that's kind of one of the things I pointed out in one of my videos, is that the XH1 and the GFX 50S both came out at about the same time. And if you look at these two cameras, they're also very similar in terms of ergonomics and functionality. Even the grip, this front grip and LCD section are very similar to one another. So the XH2 will be more like a GFX 100S, and the XT5 will be more like, sort of like in the spirit of the XT series, where it has a DSLR type look to it, and it will be probably maybe focused more towards sports and like vlogging and stuff, because it'll probably maintain this articulating screen. A lot of people really like this screen. There's a handful of people who don't. So I think that would be one of the differences. But I feel that the XH2 will be the higher end, made in Japan premium version with probably higher end video specs, and maybe a grip battery, sort of a vertical grip, battery grip that might have some more extra video features, like maybe like SDI out, or maybe an optional type of special video card. I don't know. But I think it definitely will be a more premium camera, the XH2. So hopefully that kind of answers your question. And this is all speculation, right? I have no idea. Hey, Eric the Stone, long time no see. Hello from Edmonton. Hello from Vancouver to Edmonton. Been a while since joining live. Did not make the full switch from Fujifilm to Nikon. Oh, just made the full switch to Nikon Z. Very impressed with the image quality. Yeah, image quality is fantastic. And their lenses are fantastic. Shortest flange distance, bigger mount diameter works. Yeah, so definitely they can, when you shorten the flange back distance, so there's less air between the last rear element and the sensor, you're going to get higher IQ. Hence why the X100V and the Leica Q and these all-in-one cameras tend to have pretty good image qualities because how close that lens is to the sensor. But of course, these lenses are not interchangeable. But if you look at even cameras like the film cameras, the Mamiya 7 and the Mamiya 6, half the lens almost fits inside the camera to make sure that that rear lens element is as close to the film plane as possible, which helps to increase the IQ, but as well as it keeps the camera as thin as possible, because one of the problems with SLRs and DSLRs was that mirror box that created that much deeper flange back distance between the lens mount and the actual image plane, right? If it was either film or if it was digital sensor, because you need room for that mirror to flap up and down. But when you don't have that mirror, you just shrink that down like this, and now all of a sudden, you know, that there's less air. There's less light having to travel through air, and because of that, you can, you know, fine-tune the lenses better so that you get higher image quality. So yeah, I've been hearing good things about the Z series. I haven't tried it myself personally, but I've had a few friends that that have the Z series cameras and they're enjoying. So I'm glad that you're having a good time with that. Not buying this is like double O or like eyeballs. Not buying a camera until it has 300 megapixels and 16K video. Yeah, that's funny. You know, the funny thing is, they're probably, I mean, with the sensor shift, I forgot the name of it, on the GFX 100, you can get 400 megapixel images out of that. I think high resolution, especially when you can image stack, it's not that hard, but a lot of the processing is done out of camera. Like you don't do it in camera, but that 16K video is definitely kind of funny in terms of like, even with full frame now and medium format, right? You get really bad rolling shutter even with the GFX 100S. Fujifilm says it's been improved with the backside illuminated sensor, but you still get rolling shutter because when the sensor is completely left open, the time it takes to read, because remember, each pixel is read line by line like this, right? Or something like this. And so by the time it reads the first pixel to the last pixel, there's milliseconds of a difference. And if your subject is moving, the position of what your subject was at is in a different position by the time the image has been taken. And there's rolling shutter. And that's the problem you're going to get probably with higher resolution sensors. Like, let's just say 16K comes out in a few years. I think the biggest hurdle will be, are we going to make smaller pixels or larger sensor area? I think it's easier to make it into a larger sensor area like the current digital medium format. But with that, you need faster throughput, which you can't do with modern technology. You need a organic sensor that can, you know, so you can have a global shutter. And with a global shutter, you could most likely avoid rolling shutter so that each pixel is read almost simultaneously, and get rid of rolling shutter. But then you need a lot of processing power and a lot of hard drive space. Basically, you're probably plugging in like, you know, like even a 1 terabyte card won't be enough. You'll need, you know, like a whatever, 32 terabyte card just to make these high resolution. I think I was even talking to a few people about, you know, resolution wars. And, you know, the Leica SL2-S, which is actually the camera that I wanted to review, Leica says, oh, we have that on loan for a while. Like, because they said, what camera do you want to review now? And I said, SL2-S. And they said, no, we don't have it. And we won't have it for a bit. What else do you want? And so I said, what do you have? And they said, Q2 monochrome. I said, oh, cool, I'll take that as well. Or instead. But, you know, they went from, look what I'm using now, 47 megapixel SL2 to a 24 megapixel SL2S. And if you go to B&H, the last time I checked, they were sold out of the SL2S, which is $2,000 cheaper, mind you. But a lot of people are thinking, I don't need 47 megapixel with what I do if I'm doing hybrid videos and stills. And I think, so to me personally, for 35 mil or full frame, I'm happy with 36 megapixels. And with APS-C, I'm happy with 24, 26 megapixels. Until the sensor technology can catch up where they can control high ISO noise, because the GFX 50S, so this is a medium format sensor, a digital medium format, so it's 44 by 33. This sensor at 50 megapixels is beautiful. I really like this. And when you got a 35 mil sensor, which is, this is 1.7 times bigger than this sensor here, right? So you got 70% more surface area on this sensor here. This is 47 megapixel. This is 50 megapixel. When I pixel peep and zoom in on an image, the pixel density is much higher on this because you're almost equaling this with megapixels, but this is 70% larger area. So this has really nice high ISO performance. So the GFX 100S, I haven't yet checked. I've looked at the resolution, but I haven't done a back-to-back ISO test. So at ISO 3200 low light using the GFX 50S against the 100S, what does the high ISO noise performance look like, all things being equal? Which they won't be, because this is using an older X Processor Pro, which is a third generation Fujifilm processor, and the GFX 100S is using the X Processor 4, which was first released on the XT3, which is the latest generation processor with newer firmware and algorithms. So they can use software to correct for high ISO noise. So, let's just see what happens. But technically, the 50S has a lower pixel density, which should technically give it better high ISO performance, all things being equal. But as I mentioned, all things aren't equal. So we'll see what happens. But that's a funny thing you said. I know you're kind of being sarcastic, but I thought that was funny. And let's continue. Any thoughts on the Leica adding an EVF on the M11? Just speculation, but what do you think? Smart move? No, I don't think it's a smart move, because the M10 and the whole M line is kind of a legacy throwback. If they add an EVF, I can see it being a external EVF that you pop on the top, or it is like an X100 where it's some kind of a hybrid EVF. But if it's a dedicated EVF, I mean, from a technical standpoint, I see why it makes sense, right? Because people will be like, well, I want to use my 135 or 90 mil lens f2, and I can't focus critically enough because through an optical rangefinder style focusing system, I can't get that accurate type focusing unless I use a real LCD with focus peaking, and even then it's difficult. So they want an EVF to focus. Makes complete sense. So a optical viewfinderless EVF only M11 seems really odd to me, unless they make two versions of an M11 EVF and then an M11 standard rangefinder, and having like two different, so an M11E, right, for the EVF, and then a standard M11. I can sort of see that, but I still think they are kind of messing with I'm not a traditionalist when it comes to Leica, meaning like everything's got to be mechanical, everything's got to be like the old ways. There is progress, right? So an M10 can't be, or an M series digital can't be just stifled by legacy. Some things kind of need to move forward. And so some kind of electronic viewfinder, I think, would be smart if Fujifilm is willing to sell the X100 technology for hybrid EVF, OVF. I think that would be the best move for Leica if they can convince Fujifilm to sell them the technology, or if Leica has the ability to create that same technology for themselves. But a rangefinderless M11 without making an optional traditional M11 with a standard rangefinder, I think would be a huge mistake. How do you usually clean your digital sensors? Do you know anything about using sensor swabs for cleaning? Yeah, I actually just bought a new kit, a package here. They're pretty cheap. Sensor cleaning is not that difficult. There's quite a few YouTube videos. I was thinking about doing one for myself. They're pretty easy. It's just, you swipe one way, you swipe the other way. They give a special liquid. Sensors are very strong. You have this. Sensors are made out of multiple layers, and that final glass layer is pretty strong. Don't worry too much about damaging your sensor. There are a few things depending on if your camera has IBIS or not, and also making sure that your sensor has a shutter lock, like it stays locked open. And if it doesn't have that mode, make sure there's no way you can accidentally press a shutter button, so that when the shutter closes is when you could damage the shutter. And that's the most dangerous part of sensor cleaning, is damaging your shutter, not necessarily damaging the sensor itself. But yeah, there's tons of YouTube videos out there. It's not that difficult. I have a sensor cleaning kit here. Let's just see which one I use. Which one do I use? Here we go. I just use, this is an APS-C kit here. I just got off of Amazon, but there's multiple ones. I think this is probably one of the higher rated ones, but you get the little squeegee swab thing and just like the cleaning material, but it's not that difficult. It's pretty easy, and if you mess up one, then you just grab another swab. I think this one, how many swabs do they give me in this kit? Looks like they give me 16. Is it 16? They give me 14. 1 second here. 16 millimeter, 14 pieces. I get 14 swabs. So worst thing is like, oh well, this whatever. You didn't do a good job cleaning it. Then use another swab. So there you go. Yeah, it's not that difficult. You just got to be careful. That's all. Just like climbing a ladder, right? Climbing a ladder can be dangerous if you're not careful, but if you're careful and you take all the proper precautions, it's fine. But again, the most dangerous part of cleaning your sensor is actually damaging your shutter, not the sensor itself. I wish camera manufacturers would concentrate more on image processing, trying to achieve filmic quality and industrial design, user experience, and fighting those stupid number wars. Yeah, definitely. And I think with the Leica SL2-S, so Leica going from 47 megapixels down to 24 megapixels, and all of a sudden the SL2-S is sold out, I think that informs Leica going, oh, wow, maybe it wasn't that important for us to go up in megapixels. Because you see what they're doing in the mobile phone ecosystem of digital photography. They are making camera manufacturers look like fools of how good they are at the software game. So as I showed with the Leica Q2 monochrome, you saw the difference between the RAW file and the JPEG, right? There's a lot of optical correction in terms of the distortion, but as well as there's vignetting that has been corrected, and there's probably going to be a little bit of sharpening added to it. And this is a monochromatic camera, right? But when there's color information, again, there's lots of software involved. Fujifilm's new cameras, since the X Pro 3 has the HDR mode where it takes multiple photos and it sandwiches it into one, that kind of stuff. I think really camera manufacturers should embrace, and probably even hire third-party manufacturers, software manufacturers like brands like Filmic and R&I, to actually help them with, I mean, maybe not Fujifilm because they were a film manufacturer. They know color very well. But other manufacturers, especially Sony, that gets a lot of criticism for their color science, which is, if you're good, you know how to work around it and kind of make your own kind of a look and profile. But if Sony worked with Visco or some of these other software manufacturers to create cool, not necessarily filters, but what do people call them? Plugins or something like that? Or I don't use them for Lightroom, but people buy filter packs. What do they call them? Film packs. Then, you're working on more than just megapixels, but the end product, which is what most of us are concerned about. Because in the end, I don't think you care if I took an image with a 47 megapixel camera or 24 megapixel camera. As long as the image looks cool, you're happy with it, right? And I think that's what a lot of people have realized with Fujifilm, is that no matter what the sensor size is, no matter what the megapixel count is, in the end, they love the overall look, the aesthetic of Fujifilm images, straight out of camera JPEGs, because Fujifilm has worked not only on styling, ergonomics, design, optics, technology, but as well as upping that processor and the film simulations, which in the recent awards, I forgot the name of the awards. Fujifilm won an award. It's a prestigious, I think it's called the IF Awards out of Germany, out of Hamburg, Germany. They won 23 awards this year, and one of them was for their film simulations. So they won an award for a virtual product of design, right? So Fujifilm is very well known for the color science, and I think other manufacturers should learn from Fujifilm and working on things other than just megapixels, which Fujifilm is also working on, right? Because the X-H2 will be quite a monster of a camera, I'm sure. Cafe YVR, I never clean my sensor. I should clean yours for you. Ali, how is IBIS on the XS10 compared to the XT4 and the GR3? I'm playing with the GR3 for night shots, and it's doing good. Handheld, still subject. Yeah, I find that the GR3, first of all, you're using a 28mm wide-angle lens, so it tends to help that it's wide-angle. The GR3 IBIS is really good. Autofocus is not very good, as you probably realize. The XS10 IBIS is good as well. The XT4 is good. In fact, the GFX 100S is very good. So Fujifilm's IBIS, and especially now they have the ability to work with the OIS, the IBIS, as well as software correction, which the XT4 has. I'm not sure if the XS10 has that as well. It might, although it might only apply for video. It's also very good. I wouldn't hesitate on the IBIS. The Leica Q2 OIS and the Leica SL's IBIS. I like the SL2's IBIS better than the Q's OIS. I don't find the OIS that effective on the Leica Q2. Even at a 30th of a second, I find that I'm still getting some blurry images. With the GR, I can get down to like a third of a second and still have a tack sharp image, and same with the Fujifilms. And so, but anyways, the XT4, the XS10 IBIS is very good. MK Wong, hey Taki, random question. How do you archive your film negatives? My organization is such a mess. Yeah, mine's kind of a mess. One word or two words, camera girl. She used to be the organizer of my negatives. The best way, if you go to camera film photo, I'm not sure what section it's under, but they have these really nice archival binder / boxes. So they are a binder, but they look like a box, and it's like a 3-ring binder, and they have the archival sleeves, and that's probably the best way to store your negatives and archive negatives. I'm not that great myself either, but I'm planning on buying those archival boxes from Camera Film Photo and ordering like 10 of them and just put them on my bookshelf, and then start to do the tedious process of putting the date, the film type, the project, and the year, and then finding a way of numbering type system, and then having a digital file, like a spreadsheet that tells me where everything is. But that sounds like a lot of work, right? That sounds like something where if I have the money to have an assistant, that's the job for the intern or my assistant to do, because I'm pretty good with digital backups. I'm pretty organized when it comes to that. But when it comes to my film negatives, I started shooting digital 15 years after I started shooting film. So, I wasn't that great at organizing before. I have binders, but they're kind of randomly put in. They're not organized by film type. They're not organized by by date, but not really. So yeah, I'm kind of the worst guy to there you go. Thank you. The IF Design Awards. Thank you, Cat4. Yeah. So Fujifilm won 23 awards this year, which was supposed to be a record for the amount of awards. I'm not sure if it's a record for Fujifilm or a record for any one company to get 23 awards at this ceremony, but it's quite a prestigious awards. But Fujifilm won 2 virtual awards. One was for their Instax software, their smartphone software, and another one was for their the film simulations. So Fujifilm won an award, a design award for the film simulations, which is bravo for Fujifilm. Untitled shot. Fuji, Leica, Hasselblad in Phase 1 has released some enterprise and color grading. Sony is all about fitting the most feature in a camera. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely pluses and minuses to every manufacturer. Sony is a tech driven, because remember, Sony is not really a camera manufacturer, right? They are an electronics powerhouse. They make elevator systems, they make satellite components, they make televisions, not as much as before. But they still kind of make DVD players and stuff, but there's not much money in that. They're into mostly a big division is the silicon, right? They make microprocessors, and they also make components as well, including digital sensors for digital cameras. That's kind of their angle. I mean, hence Fujifilm buys all their sensors from Sony, right? For that exact reason, that Sony is really good at that technical, scientific, engineering end of things. But they couldn't be good at everything. If they were, then there wouldn't be any other manufacturers. I think it's good that some manufacturers are stronger at some things and then they're weaker at other things, and other manufacturers are same thing. They're really strong at some things and not so strong in other areas. And I think each manufacturer is trying to equalize. Like Sony's been working on design, ergonomics, and aesthetics, right? Their filing system is still a mess. I don't understand why the video files are hidden inside. I forgot what it was. Is it like a private folder or something? But it's just buried. You're like, where's my video files? Where did it go? And Sony has this convoluted, mysterious way of creating files. I'm just scratching my head going, who invented this? This is the weirdest filing structure I've ever seen out of any manufacturer creating any product, let alone photography, right? But it just seems so convoluted. They got a lot of things to work on, but same with Fujifilm and same with Leica, right? Like their video profiles need a lot of work. It needs a little bit more leeway, like contrast, -2. I think they need to go as far back as -10 on their video. So video is kind of clunky with Leica. They'll improve. Fujifilm was very clunky with video 4 or 5 years ago, and now they're doing really well. Fujifilm's eye tracking was really clunky even just 3 years ago, and now it's pretty good. Not as good as Canon or Sony, but still pretty darn good. Sony's aesthetics was kind of weird, right? And now I think like the A7C I thought was a pretty handsome looking camera. It even comes in various colorways because it's handsome enough to have a silver version. So I think it's good that every manufacturer is working on their weaknesses. Untitled shot. I have both Q2 for shooting experience, especially for street. Oh, cool. You have the Q2. Pick one, SL2 or GFX. I think for me, for now, GFX would make the most sense. But if it was my own money, weirdly enough, I would probably pick a GFX 50S, but not at the current price. Current price at $5,500 is way out of whack. Because for $500 more, you get an GFX 100S. It's not about the megapixels. Let's just say this was the new 100S was still 50 megapixels. It has the latest X processor 4. It has IBIS. It has all the new film simulation, which this has as well. It has the new MPW 235 battery, which is the same battery that's in the XT4. Ergonomics in general is better on this, but there's a few things I actually prefer on the 50S versus the GFX 100S, which I've mentioned in my first look video. But if the 50S is dropped to like $3,500, if I can get it for like $3,000, would I pay $6,000 for this if I can get this for half price? I probably wouldn't. I'd probably get the 50S. Although there's probably a 50S Mark II coming out, and I'm gonna see how much that one is. And if that's coming out and it's gonna be like $5,000, this will definitely plummet to like $3,000 or $3,500 US. I'm talking about US pricing. So I would probably pick the GFX because it's a system I'm more well acquainted with. And if I was gonna buy any Leica right now, it would probably be the Q2 or like an M series digital body, because I don't have an M series digital. I have an M series film body. I actually have two of them, right? I have the CLE and I have the M7, and to add an M10 to my ecosystem of M cameras, I think it'll be a lot of fun. So to me, as much as I like the SL2 and the SL2-S, I would probably go GFX to fit that kind of compartment of my style of photography. But Q2, I can definitely see myself shooting with a Q2. A lot of fun. And I could definitely see myself with the Leica M10. But good questions. Thanks for asking that. And let me see here. Untitled, yes, Untitled Shot saying GFX 100S for technicalities and the edge IQ wise. If I had to pick one, 100% go GFX 100S. Yeah, I mean GFX 100S. Let me set up my camera. Let me set up my screen here. I'm gonna pull up a GFX 100S photo. Just see if I can open it up here, and I'll show you some files. I haven't shot with it a lot, mind you, but what I have shot has been mind-blowing. Just amazing images I'm getting out of the GFX. And I don't know if I can even show you a zoomed-in version. I think I can. It's made both my Asus, which has a very powerful processor, and GPU. I need to drink some water. See, my Asus is struggling to bring up the picture. But to be honest, my M1 MacBook Air struggles to open up GFX 100. I get the little spinning beach ball with my M1. And you know how everyone praises the M1 for how great it is for its ability to not throttle. The GFX 100S can make a throttle. So let's go to Photoscape with webcam. Can you guys see? Looks like Photoscape is gone blank, which is odd. I don't see. Oh, here we go. So here's Photoscape. Fit. And let's here, I'm gonna just bring myself back up here again. And so this is captured with the GFX 100S and the 50mm f3.5, which works out to be, it's about a 2.8. It's like a 40mm 2.8 basically, or in APS-C it'd be like a 27 f2, right? I do have the 80mm f1.7. I do have it, but as you can see, I'm just kind of across the way from Chef Gordon. So this lens would have been, I'd have to go back like 5 feet to get a shot like this, right? And I do like that look. I like the perspective of basically a 40mm lens on the GFX. So this is Chef Gordon, and let's just zoom right in here. Let's just go to his face here. So hopefully you can see, I mean, you can see his eyelashes there. See his eyelashes there? And down here you can see how much I'm zoomed in. What does it say there? It doesn't give me a percentage. Do I see a percentage around here somewhere? I don't see a percentage. But it's definitely more than 100%. 100% should be around here, I think, right? This is about 100% zoom in like that. This is fully out like this. Well, like this, right? There you go. So that's like 100%. And now zoom right into his eyes. There you go. Look at that. And this is shot at f3.5. You can see down here a 40th of a second, right? At f3.5. So this is wide open, and you can see his ears are already blurry, right? You can see his hair sort of here, it's already starting to get blurry. So his eyes are in focus, and a little bit of his nose. The mask is in focus. In fact, he may have focused on his, like right here, and this is slightly out of focus, his eyes, and it actually focused on his eyelashes. So this is what a 100 megapixel image looks like right here. Really nice. I have the same picture that I took using the Leica Q at 47 megapixel, and definitely you could see the resolution difference. You could see a huge difference. So there you go. Sorry, I think I accidentally paused. Let me just give me a second here, guys. I just want to make sure everything looks good. Leave that like that, maybe. And here we go. All right. So, yeah, GFX 100. And then remember, it has that sensor shift mode where it'll shift either for 400 megapixels or it will shift to get better color dynamic information. Because remember, each sensor is dedicated to only one color, right? So there's red, blue, green. And so it only gets color information of one color type at one point. But by sensor shifting, you shift those 4 pixels around so you get more color information. So either 400 megapixels or greater color information, color depth with that new software that Fujifilm has for the GFX 100. And hopefully they can bring that to the APS-C cameras as well, not just for the GFX 100 series. And someone asking about doing astrophotography. I haven't done it. I'm not sure if anyone else has done it. Seems like a lot of fun, though. A lot of people are doing it. 50S Mark II with better video specs and faster shooting. Yeah, hopefully. That's what I really want to see with the GFX 50S, which is just rumored, right? We don't know for sure. I got sort of like slight hints from Fujifilm. I had a meeting with Fujifilm a couple of weeks back about something different, and they kind of hinted to something, but not actually given anything away to me. So, because they always make me sign an NDA before they give me anything that's sort of secretive. So, but there is something coming, but they just won't say what it is. Basically, I was complaining about the price of the 50S, saying, why is the 50S $500 cheaper than the 100S? It makes no sense. Why would anyone buy the 50S for $500 cheaper? It should be at least $1,000, if not $1,500 cheaper, right? And then they basically said, just wait, something's coming up. We can't say what. Stay tuned. And that's all I got. So we'll see what happens. Kevon, I love my Leica M10, but the Q2 would be amazing to have an autofocus. Yeah, that's the beauty. And if I can say one major thing, two major things, and I'm going to do a video on this, is an articulating screen on the Q2 would be fantastic. I really missed it because you kind of get used to waist level shooting for street photography and just kind of like odd angles, because I always tell people, look, I'm not that tall. I'm 5'5", and when I photograph people, like on my Instagram, I took a photo of Kyle, a colleague of mine, and he's like 6'2", 6'3", and I had to shoot kind of over my head to get a direct. And he was actually on a little bit of a hill, a little bit. So it made him like 6'5", and I wanted an eye level shot. I had to shoot above my head like this. And if I had an articulating screen that articulated downwards so I can see clearly, that would have been even useful or helpful, right? So I'm shooting like this and just tilt it down like that. That is useful to me as well, not just shooting like this, right? So I think a Q2 should have an articulating screen. Q3. And also a USB Type-C in for not only battery charge, because with this, it uses the SL2 battery, or the SL battery in here, which is great. So if you have a SL, SL2, Q2, using the same battery, right, which is great, but you always need to bring the charger. You can't do USB charging because there is no USB port. So for charging, as well as for pulling images out, because now with the USB-C, Intel's opened the standard up for Thunderbolt without licensing, without using their controller. They could put USB-C Thunderbolt 3 connections in digital cameras now. It's another thing about innovation. Stop giving us more megapixels. Give us more convenience, better features like full HDMI out, which the SL2 does have. It has a full, proper HDMI out. and have a USB-C Thunderbolt out so you can pull your images out faster than any memory card reader. And as well as using the Q as a webcam. So imagine traveling in the world with a Q2, has articulating screen, you know, just at least this way and this way, not necessarily flip out. I don't think it'll work because of the way the controls are, although they could move these controls, these controls over here. And having USB-C for webcam video control, as well as for charging and for pulling images out of the Leica Q. So those are the changes that I would like to see on a Q3. And I'm going to try to 50 minutes. Thank you, Cafe YVR. I'm going to try to like flip through. I got a lot of questions here. So thanks for all your questions here. And Frederick saying, I have a Q2 and my MacBook barely manages the files. Yeah, but Frederick, do you have an M1 MacBook? Because the M1 is fantastic. I had the old MacBook Pro 13-inch, and I went with the M1. It's like, holy cow, this is like madness how fast it is. And I've been shooting H.265 422 video, 4K 60 video, no hiccups, no drop frames, no beach ball, nothing. It's just smoothly, where my MacBook Pro just couldn't do it. Couldn't do H.265. M1 can do it, no problem. But this X100, when I kind of want to zoom in 100%, it doesn't work out very well. And let me just maybe get rid of Chef Gordon. Thank you, Chef Gordon, for posing for me. And I'm going to go back to me here. Kavon, 100 megapixel image seems overkill. Yeah, it depends really what you're doing. If you're doing magazine work, you're doing client work, you know, you're shooting the latest McLaren or Ferrari sports car, you need a lot of negative space because you don't know if they want to crop the image vertically or horizontally. You don't know, you know, how the images are being used. Imagine like 20 years ago when you use a 5 megapixel camera to take a picture of something, and now 20 years later, that's the only image you have, which is kind of the beauty of when you shoot film. If you ever saw that The Last Dance documentary about Michael Jordan and the Bulls in his last season, oh, look at that. See, the battery died on the Leica Q. So I'm going to now have a dead camera, and I don't have time to switch over now, guys. So thanks for your questions. I'm not going to have time to finish. You know what I should actually do is go to Photoscape like this. So at least you have some picture to look at, right? So, yeah, I lost the video. The Leica Q2, the SL2, I have it plugged into USB-C power, but it seems like I get about an hour worth of battery, even with the USB-C charging, unless the USB-C charging isn't turned on and it's just going off of battery power. So I don't have time to switch cameras right now. And the laptop I'm using is the Asus Zephyrus Dual 15, and there actually is no webcam on here, so I can't switch to a webcam. So I apologize for that as well. So I'm gonna have to end off with Gord there pointing inside Photoscape. Let me just even zoom off of here so it's not such a close-up of Gord. Maybe make him a little self-conscious. Back him off just a little bit there. So thanks for joining, guys. I am just over the time limit, I think. Anyways, Kayvon, the last point I was going to make is, if you look at the Last Dance documentary, the fellows that filmed it on film. And when you look at when they switch from their footage to the television footage, you can see how awful the archived footage of television was, because it was based on whatever the TV was. If you saw the stuff from the 80s, it was basically like SD or lower, right? So it was like 144, 240 lines of resolution. And then went into the 90s, it was probably, even if you use Super Beta, it would have been maybe 480 lines. So it's like DVD, kind of original DVD quality. And then when you looked at their video footage that the Last Dance documentary guys were shooting, they shot that all on film, on movie film. And because of that, the resolution is fantastic. So it shows you, like, if you're shooting digital, we never know the future of where digital's going. And if you can shoot with as much resolution as you can based on what the images are being used for. So family portraits, you're posting to Instagram and blah, blah, blah. You probably don't need 100 megapixels. But if you're doing archived photos of, the Declaration of Independence, or you're doing insurance photography for like paintings, and you're doing, you're archiving museum pieces and stuff like that, and you're doing 3D rendering, I think it's important to use as highest of resolution as you can get your hands on. That's kind of my perspective. But for the majority of us mortals, yeah, 100 megapixels is unnecessary. I'm happy with 24 for most of my work, but it is beautiful when you get even 50 megapixels. To me, I think is a sweet spot for medium format, and about 36 megapixel for 35 millimeter is a sweet spot, and 24 megapixel is sweet spot for APS-C. But the world is changing. People want higher resolution screens. I don't even have a 4K monitor myself. So, I don't really need anything 4K right now, but I'm shooting in 4K to sort of future-proof myself. And so, anyways, thank you so much for joining, guys. If I missed your question, once the video goes, like you can see it after, you can re-ask the question in there. And if you can, I'd appreciate if you guys give a like to the video. Even if you watch this video now, once the video goes live, it helps with the algorithms. I'm really struggling to make this YouTube thing work for myself. I'm kind of at a crossroads of maybe even, not doing YouTube anymore. It's a struggle. So I need more followers. I need more viewers, which attracts more sponsors. And that way I can continue doing things like this and be able to provide free content like this for you guys to enjoy. All right. So thanks so much for watching, guys, and happy shooting.